if that's what you want to do, right? How many of you have ever heard that interpretation of that story? I mean, if he's a rebel leader, he doesn't want the people to just take it, he wants them to fight back. You think of it that way. But his thesis in this book is that Christianity weakened the empire, and as a result it collapsed. But if you study the end of the empire, what we now know, of course, was that the mercenaries that were hired by the Romans were initially the ones that basically threw out the leadership, and they were Christians themselves. So we even get a dichotomy between various Christian interpretations of what Christianity means. And so the different emperors that take over, that were the barbarians, were actually Christians themselves. And I love pointing out that across the Glen Highway from where I live in Eagle River, there's a building that flies the Roman flag. It's the Catholic Church across the street that has the flag of the Vatican, which is where the Emperor of Rome still sits. And it's one of the largest churches in the world, with people all over, etc. Pope Francis is the current imperator, which is also the Pontifex, which is the title of the Roman emperor. The Pontifex is the bridge. And the bridge is the bridge between the human and the divine. So the emperor was not just a government official, he was also a god. And in fact, the head of the Roman sacrifices and religions. And if we look, actually much later than Jesus, we could look at the Pantheon in Rome. Where's the link? I want better than that. So remember, Pantheon. Pantheon means all the gods. And if you would go into this temple, which it was, now it's a basilica, but if you went in, it was the largest dome the Romans ever made out of concrete. In fact, I don't know, is it still the largest dome in the world? Or is I think the Hagia Sophia is the largest dome in the world. Not sure. This was made out of concrete, and by the way, the Romans invented concrete. Yes, Robin.
The Singapore National Stadium is the largest dome in the world as of now.
But considering this is over 1,000 years old, that's kind of impressive. It does have cracks in it, by the way. So even though it's one of the most heavily tourist places in Rome, I think like number 3 or something. The Colosseum is another one. I don't know what the others are. But if you go visit, be careful because it is cracked. So that's, and by the way, at the very top, you can't see it, there's an oculus, which I think is where we got the word Oculus for the Oculus Rift, I guess. There it is. So if you look straight up, there's an oculus, so that the sun shines in the roof, and as the day goes by, it moves around so that you can tell basically what time of day it is, etc. At the Pantheon, the Romans.
By the way, the Pantheon is still the largest unreinforced solid concrete dome.
I heard it was quite impressive for some reason. And it's so old. That's the amazing thing.
It was the largest dome in the world for over a millennium.
And why did I bring it up? because it's dedicated to all the gods. They're so confused, they don't know what God to believe in, so we better believe in all of them, just in case. But Epictetus is a Stoic. Remember, I think I mentioned that Zeno is the one who gives us the concept of the Stoa. Zeno of Citium. I should point him out. You have to spell it correctly, don't you? Maybe not. He's the founder of the Stoic school of philosophy. And Stoa comes from the word porch. I should say that somewhere. That's probably interesting. You know, if you go to a cocktail party and people are talking about philosophy and stuff, all these little tidbits might come in handy. So if somebody says something, you have something else you can argue and you know it. So that's kind of handy. So these are powerful concepts that you can have in your pocket ready for occasions of use, to indicate your astute learnedness, or whatever you think of that, if you ever need it. But, so what kind of eudaimonia is he after? It's a city where people have to take care of it. As Aristotle argues in his Nicomachean Ethics and his Politics, what you need is a good city in order for you to have a good community, for you to have a good family, for you to raise good children. So you need all of this in order for this to happen. And that means that everybody in the community has to help keep the community healthy. Epicureans are not going to help. The Cynics are not going to help. But the Stoics' job is to run the city, to be in the military, to run the military, to run the government, to do it in the best way possible, to be the aristocracy that Aristotle argued is what's necessary for a good government. And so the Stoic is trying to be happy himself. At the same time, he's attending all the governmental businesses that he has to attend in order to make the city run proficiently. And as a result, as I hinted last class, that you've got to sit through a lot of boring crap in order to do this job. And so how on earth can this make people happy? You've probably met lots of people that suffer through all this stuff and are not having a good time. Well, the whole point of being a Stoic is that you still have a good time despite the fact that your body is having to sit through these kinds of events in order to do your job, right? So how does this work? You internalize yourself in a way that what's going on to the outside of you isn't affecting your happiness. You steel yourself against it. Of course, the problem is then you're emotionally not involved in what's going on. So Dolce Pontes would say, or actually even better, Madonna would say, you're frozen if your heart's not open, right? While a Stoic is not going to open his heart because he doesn't want to be screwed by whoever is trying to get his attention and so on, right? So the Stoic is frozen, isolated within himself, so that he's safe. And we have lots of terrific examples of people that have done this. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Germany during Hitler's reign. And since he was also Jewish, he ended up being put in, I think he was in 3 different camps. But he survived them all, for one thing because he was a medical doctor as a psychiatrist. And so the Germans, the Nazis, used him as a doctor in each of the camps, and they kept him alive because by being a doctor he was able to do a job for them. But he himself explains how he survived that experience in various books. Let's see if I could. In fact, I don't need to just do this. I could go and show you him speaking. Use this one. This one's short.
They wish to make a lot of money. In Europe, every American student, if more every American adult, is regarded as someone who is just out to make a lot of money. Really, 16% of these students regarded their main goal and concern in life to make a lot of money. I'm quoting literally, make a lot of money. And you know what the top class, the top category, we say category, what do you say? Category was among, excuse me, but I know I am speaking a marvelous accent without the slightest English. Now, you know what the top category was? 78% of these American youngsters were concerned, as they expressed it themselves, with finding a meaning and purpose in their lives. So this is a realistic view of man. And you know, you won't believe it, gray hair, my age, I started taking flying lessons recently. Do you know what my flying instructor told me? If you are starting here, wish to get here, say east, heading for this, and you have a crosswind, you will drift and you will land here. So you have to do what we pilots call crabbing, he told me, C-R-A-B, crabbing. You have to head for north of this airfield, and you have to fly that way, you see, as if you headed in this direction. If you are heading here above this airfield, then you will actually land here. But if you head for here, you are landing here. This holds also for man, I would say. If we take man as he really is, we make him worse. But if we overestimate him, it's premature, your applause, you will soon know why. If we seem to be idealists and are overestimating, overrating man, and looking at him that high, here above, you know what happens? We promote him to what he really can be. So we have to be idealists in a way, because then we'll wind up as the real realists. And you know who has said this? If we take man as he is, we make him worse. But if we take man as he should be, we make him capable of becoming what he can be. This was not my flight instructor, this was not me, this was Goethe. He said this verbally. And now you will understand why I, in one of my writings, once said, this is the most apt maxim and motto for any psychotherapeutic activity. So if you don't recognize a young man's will to meaning, Man search for meaning. You make him worse, you make him dull, you make him frustrated, you still add and contribute to his frustration. While if you presuppose in this man, if in this so-called criminal or juvenile delinquent or drug abuse and so
I'm just going to quick show you the webpage for Goethe. He's the one he mentioned who was the originator of that expression as far as he knew. And there you go. But I wanted to mention a couple of his books. Really, there's one main book, and I think all the others are kind of a follow-up on that. Man's Search for Meaning, I think is the name of the book. Man's Search for Meaning. And what he explains is that what is called logotherapy. So if you're trying to be a therapist and help someone, number one, you have to treat the entire family, because individuals don't have mental issues all by themselves. They have mental issues in consort with the other individuals they live with. By the way, fascinating event for the first time yesterday. The mother of the shooter of Oxford Middle School, I think it was found guilty of manslaughter because of her son's killing 4 students in the school. That's, I think, the first time, at least they said so on TV, that's the first time that a parent was also found guilty of what their child did. So, I don't know if you find that interesting, and what's that going to do when we have that kind of an event, when we have them. But logotherapy and existential analysis, but you're also constantly trying to retreat mentally from the stresses that you're experiencing. So as a Stoic, when he was in the camps, he retreated into his mind where he was emotionally safe while the Nazis tormented him, punished him, starved him, overworked him, all those things. He kind of watched it as kind of an interesting experience, so that his body was not him, but his soul was separated from his body, and his soul was watching what was going on. I have to admit, the same thing helped me when I was in basic training in the